Quiet Corner Convo here at Westfield Church. I'm the Reverend Dr. Jonathan Chapman, the pastor at Westfield, and this is Mary Calorio, Killingley's town manager. Now, this is our first time doing this, and our idea is a simple one. It's to take leaders from across the Quiet Corner, bring them here, and talk to them about what it is they do, what they see as unique challenges and opportunities for our area, what it means to belong here, what the future may hold for us in the Quiet Corner, and to sort of get a glimpse behind the curtain of how things operate in this neck of the woods to some extent. We're glad that you're joining us. We've got some folks here too. Our next one I'm going to go on and tell you is August 22nd. We'll have Missy Myers, who is high up over at Generations, who will be here. She's also the president of Putnam Rotary. She'll be here talking with us about her perspective, so go on and mark your calendar. I'll repeat that date at the end of our conversation. But for now, we are thrilled to have Mary Calorio, Killingley Town Manager, with us. Mary, thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank you for having me
here. Let's jump off with the basics. Where are you from?
I'm from here, actually. I'm actually from Plainfield.
Okay.
So born, raised, Moose Up, and so I've spent all my life pretty much in and around the northeast corner of Connecticut. So this is home. I did for a brief period in my adult life. Me and my husband moved down to Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh.
Yep, it was a God move.
Okay.
And never thought we were coming back, and lo and behold, 2 years later, we came back. And it really felt like we were coming back to not just our roots, but really our home community. And so I love this. I love this whole area and the whole northeast corner, but these are the communities that I've spent my whole life in.
What do you love the most about it?
I like how everyone is willing to really pull together in crisis, but even just when they see a need. They're willing to step in and help, and they're willing to help others. And I know that kind of seems a bit contradictory to what we see in today's media or in sometimes in the online platforms, but really I think people here have a really good heart, and they really want to do what's best for others that are around them, and I love that. I love that people are really wanting to look out for others that are around them.
I found that to be true too. When I moved up here, like bona fide outsider here, right?
Right.
Moved up here, and I was so worried about this like Yankee Southern,
Yep.
What that was going to look like. And what I found were, yes, some people who were a little crusty, no doubt. But what I found also were people who, once you broke through that, who are fiercely loyal, who are so generous.
Yep.
When we did our restoration effort here, people came out of the woodwork. People who had never stepped into this building before, but they knew that steeple was iconic to our area, and they were going to be a part of it, feeding people, showing up again and again.
And they're sincere.
Yes.
That's one thing that I truly appreciate, is that they'll honestly give you what their viewpoint is, and they're sincere in their desire to help in everything. So, that's what I really enjoy. Having lived in Memphis for a period of time, I really, they say Southern hospitality is a fantastic thing, right? And it is, but as an outsider going in, I really found that it was surface level, and it was really hard to break through the crust.
Oh yeah, I could hate you
down
for
there.
months and you'd never know it.
Exactly, right? Like you
But
don't know it, but up here you know it.
Yeah.
Like you know it within the
You know
first
where
5
you
minutes,
stand.
right?
Yeah,
You know where
that's
you
right.
stand, right? And so, and I appreciate that, but I really appreciate how I've seen this community pull together in so many ways over the 15 years that I've been involved with this community. And it's beautiful to watch, and it's beautiful to see them really bond together and come together.
Tell us a little bit about your family.
So I've been married with my husband now for 22 years, and I have my oldest son is 20. He's turning 21 in October. My youngest son is turning 19 this month, and then we've recently adopted a little girl. So we became kindred foster a few years back, and we received our daughter. She was 5 weeks old when she came to our house. It was our 19th wedding anniversary. My husband still to this day says, I'm pretty sure baby is not the 19th wedding anniversary gift. But she's a beautiful gift. And so Lily is turning 3 this week. So we've had her for essentially almost 3 years now. And so she keeps us busy.
I bet.
Yeah, so fortunately, we're fortunate my husband gets to stay home with her. My husband worked in construction for the majority of his career, and so he's battered and bruised. So it's better for him to be able to take care of her. But yeah, so that's my family. My oldest just grew his wings this past year and bought his house.
Oh wow.
Right. Well, it'll be a year in September that he's had his house. So he's adulting, and he's not sure about this whole adulting thing,
Me either.
Right?
Yeah.
I tell him that all the time. I'm like, kid, I get it. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. So, he's got his full-time job, and he's, starting to understand what it means to make a mortgage payment and all of those things. But it's great to see him grow wings and fly.
Yeah, and to kind of be like, it worked.
It worked.
Like we did it. It worked.
Yeah, like it worked. One actually made it out.
Yeah.
I don't know about the second one, but one made it out.
So what draws you to town management? What is it you do?
Yeah.
How did you get into it? Why do you still do it? Tell us some about that.
So I didn't go through school expecting to become a town manager. I actually went to school for accounting. And I took the non-traditional route for schooling. I worked full-time and went to school part-time. It took me 15 years to get a bachelor's degree, right? So my heart was really in finance, and I got the taste of being able to work as more in a public servant role when I worked for a public bus company, and realizing and recognizing the ability to meet the needs of people in a basic format as far as transportation. And so I really enjoyed that opportunity, and I enjoyed the opportunity to really look at more than just the books, more than just accounting, more than just finance. In that role, I was able to see a lot of capital projects and things like that. I got the opportunity after coming back from Memphis. I became the finance director here in Killingly. And I was really fortunate with the town manager that I had, that I was serving under. He gave me the opportunity to really see a lot more than what a traditional finance director would see. I got to participate in labor negotiations and human resources, as well as capital improvement planning and long-term planning and all of those things. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And so I decided that town management was the path and direction I wanted to go into. But at the time, I really felt like my kids were too young. And I can't do this with young kids because there's a lot of night meetings. There's a lot of extra time that you have to put into this. It's not a, 8-hour day by any stretch of the imagination. And so I really felt at the time that my kids were just too young for me to, and I needed to pour time into them still. And so I held off for a bit of time. Go figure, now I'm doing it with a 3-year-old, right?
Like, I was about to say, how'd that work out?
Right, how'd that work out, right? God went, really? Are you sure? So anyway, so I got the opportunity to serve in Putnam and Chile as a town administrator, which is sort of like an assistant town manager, because you work really with the mayor, kind of under the mayor a little bit. So it's just interesting to see that view. So when the opportunity came to be Killingly's town manager, I really jumped at the opportunity to come back to what I really felt was my roots. Killingly gave me the opportunity to really go into government and government and public service in that fashion. And I really wanted to be able to come back and serve. And so what do I do as a town manager? It's probably easier to say what I don't do as a town manager, right? So, but what I do as a town manager is, so I'm the chief executive officer of the town. So I run all the day-to-day operations of the town. All of the staff report to me. I report to the town council. And so I oversee all of our departments. I'm also the administrative chief of police, tree warden, ADA.
A tree warden?
I am a tree warden. Yes, I am the tree warden. I have designated my highway director and some of my highway staff as tree wardens as well. So they manage a lot of that for me. But when it comes to certain decisions, I do have to make the calls on some of those. The ADA coordinator, so when we have to do evaluations for ADA accessibilities, or when we're doing projects, making sure that accessibility is part of that component, that's part of my position. I manage the entire budget for the town, and then also oversee all the capital projects. So it's a very wide array of topics that you can have. Everything from wastewater and roads to hiring staff and dealing with law enforcement policies.
Wow. So it really runs the gamut.
It does.
For you there.
And there's never 2 days are alike.
I imagine. So you really have a unique perspective on our town.
Yeah.
You see it from a totally different side of things.
Right.
What would you say this is a twofold question.
Yeah.
Let's start with, what are some unique challenges from your perspective that Killingly faces compared to other places?
Unique challenges for Killingly, and I don't know that it's so unique that it's just Killingly that faces this, but I think that some of the unique challenges that we have is trying to make sure that we have a voice in the greater community of the state. Making sure that we are able to participate at state and federal level of some of the opportunities, being a smaller community in the state and in an area that is surrounded by small communities. A lot of the opportunities funnel in other places, so trying to be a voice in that. But for for our community here, within our community, I think sometimes we struggle with the ability to hold ourselves in a positive light. And I think almost every community struggles with that at some point, because we all know the dirty, right? Like, all of us know this, the pains and the struggles that everybody has. And sometimes I think we struggle with really being able to talk about ourselves positively, and really speak to the good qualities. I firmly believe that the more voice you give to the positive, the more positive you see, and the more positive that will perform around you. If you only speak negative, that's all you're going to see. And so that's where I think, sometimes trying to change that dialogue, right? Like, for an example, we have a lot of comments about how, our downtown's empty and nothing, there's no stores in there. There's stores in our downtown. And our downtown is no more empty than most other downtowns across the state. But if we were to, instead of talking about the empty spaces, let's talk about the businesses that are there, right? Let's talk about the great things that they're doing. Let's talk about, how they're growing and how they're, changing, right? Talk about the positives with there, and it has a whole new vibrancy, a whole new outlook when you look at that. Because you can walk down our main street and there is a lot of businesses down our main street, and to talk about those. So it's really how do we change our dialogue sometimes? Sometimes we get in a rut.
Yeah.
And how do we change that dialogue?
So tell us, what are some of the positives?
So our positives that we are a growing community. We are a vibrant community. We are really an innovation area. Our businesses that we have throughout town, not just in our industrial park, they make amazing things. We produce amazing products in this community. We have really innovative people. And we also have really engaged agricultural people as well that really want to see us grow agriculturally and conserve our lands and do the best we have with all of our resources. So I think that Killing has a really good balance with those things. But as far as, our community, we have a lot of those positives. We saw some of the largest growths in time periods when many towns were seeing contractions. We saw businesses expanding. We saw more employment opportunities in this area. Killingly, for the first time in decades, our unemployment rate is below the state average. We have typically been almost 5 points above the state average for decades. We are below that, which means we've been able to go to work. That's great. And we have quality work that's within our area, right? We have dedicated people that are willing to invest in their community. So, we have a lot of great things here in this community.
Let's talk politics.
Okay.
For a while.
I'm not politics.
So
I'm not politics.
Your position is not an elected position.
Correct.
You do not answer to the voter in that way. But it's no secret that our area is pretty politically divided, as is our country.
Sure.
We actually find that in our congregation. We joke that we're a solidly purple congregation. People tend to think that we're very progressive, and maybe theologically we tend to be. But, the Sunday after President Trump won the election, I had people who were on the verge of mental breakdown sitting next to people who were nearly dancing in the aisles.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm proudest of the last 6 years has been that we've kept that going, that we've chosen to say that we are better together than the things that are different. But in any of these online groups that are killingly oriented, we see politics rearing its head, often in ways that distract from issues that really matter for our town. How do you lead through a political climate like that? Like, I imagine that it's really challenging.
It can be, and what I try to bring into that environment is factual information. And I try and bring honest, factual information that can help. People will make their decisions however they're going to make decisions, but at least if I can give them information that can allow them to be better informed in their decision making. But with my staff and with everything I approach in the council arena or in the political arena, I really look at collectively us as a team, right? So I look at my staff as a team. I'm but part of a team. I don't do this job. I have a fantastic staff that I work with every day. And so I take their professional excellence and I help to bring the facts to whatever body it is that is having to make these decisions. And a lot of the times I think once facts are out there, I think it helps to be able to temper some of that divisiveness that's driven by political party, because I'm not political. I don't get into the political arena. I don't play political parties or anything like that. I try and reiterate the long-term goals, which are past every election, right? You know, I serve a community that has goals that far reach the next election and the election after that, right? And so what were our goals that we set, and how do we achieve them, and how do we come over to those, right? And so I try and frame it into those perspectives, because then it's harder to just talk about party at that point in time, right? It's harder to not to cut your nose off to spite your face when you know the impact that it's going to have to this long-term project that the town and the townspeople may have been working on for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? So that's what I try and bring, is really be the factual one and the one that's bringing those long-term goals and the remembrance of those long-term goals, and the remembrance of, you know, how has maintaining those goals or maintaining dedication to those goals over the course of time has benefited this community. You know, how, you know, whether one party agreed with the other party, whatever, we have dedicated ourselves in certain ways on a fiscal basis and on an economic basis that has benefited us over time, and it's required consistent commitment over the periods of time. And I think that has helped to kind of neutralize some of that. Political will be political. And there are some things that will take place that we have to, I don't want to say we just have to deal with, but the decision happens and we have to assess what the consequences are, help communicate what those consequences might be, and then try and mitigate negative consequences.
I think it's interesting you using the word team, because right when you said it, I was thinking, we've forgotten we're on the same team.
Yeah.
Like, we're not playing each other, we're not fighting each other. We're all on the same team,
right,
trying to better our community and live better together, and we get distracted really easily from that, I think.
Yeah, we can, and I think it's easy to have that happen, especially when you go through a period of time that is, a local or a national election time period where you have all those, campaigns that are happening, and then to move past that. Sometimes it's hard to bridge that, but I think we can do it, because we are all on the same team. We are all trying to support and grow the same community, and the same community that we all have friends and relatives and neighbors all in.
But nonetheless, we are still not all of one mind, even
Correct.
if we're on the same team.
Agreed.
And one thing that is a hot topic these days that we're not all of one mind about is Killingly's Bike Night.
Yes.
So Killingly's Bike Night was probably 5 years going, and this year the decision was made to cancel it.
It was.
It was going to be
my
scheduled
decision
for May 18th or August 18th.
Yep.
This is, full disclosure, a team that I've served on planning.
Yep.
Before, not this year because of personal stuff, but
sure.
It is a committee that I've long been involved in.
Yep.
And there was lots of conversation about
sure.
this decision. I imagine
sure.
this was not an easy one for you, but
what
we saw a lot of was, what? They're canceling it.
Yeah.
And the reasons given were we needed sponsorship dollars, volunteers.
Yep.
And folks said, well, I never saw anybody ask for those things. And then there were folks who said, what meeting do we go to?
Right.
And the answer to that was the Parks and Rec meeting.
Yeah, last Monday.
The Recreation Board.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that meeting? How did it go?
Sure.
What's been some of the fallout that you've noticed on your end?
Sure.
If you want to share some about the decision making around that, that's
sure.
cool. I know we've been contacted by Parks and Rec about future events that
Yes.
we're going to be involved in.
Yep.
So if you're fretting about the disappearance of Bike Night, don't. There's some cool
Yeah.
replacements on their way.
Yep.
But tell us some about that. That's definitely been a hot issue.
So yeah, no, that was not an easy decision to be had, and it really. So as far as the.
That's why. Right
Yeah,
there.
no. As far as the Board of Rec meeting.
Way to prove our point.
Yeah, right. As far as the Board of Rec meeting, I went to that last Monday night, and I know that one of the Board of Rec members had actually posted on some of the social media saying, if you have questions or concerns or want to see this come back, come to the meeting. And we had no public participation. There was nobody from the public there. They didn't receive any public comment for the meeting either. So I did meet with the commission, and we reviewed Bike Night. And so, one of the challenges that we're seeing on the recreation division, and we look at, every event, we have to evaluate every event every year, right? Because just because you ran it last year doesn't mean that automatically you run it this year, right? And you have to evaluate those. And, we've had events in the past that we've had to sunset and move on to something else. Frostival was a big one that we had in the middle of the winter, and we, for a number of reasons, decided to sunset that event and move into doing other events, right? And so with Bike Night, one of the things that we're seeing with our sponsorships, we have large corporate sponsors as well as the small mom and pop businesses and even individuals that will sponsor events. What we're seeing is that with everybody coming out of the constraints of the past couple of years, many don't have as many dollars to give to community events. So they're picking different events. And I will say our Red, White, and Blue event is our largest event. And that has been the higher sponsored event, has been that event. And it's tough to have another high dollar sponsor needed event, but 6 weeks later, right? And then to turn around and have another sponsor needed event less than a month later with formerly the Tomato Festival, which will be turning into Celebrate Killingly, right? So it's very tough because you're going to the same wells. And to be fair, our businesses have been fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. But we recognize that they've just gone through a rough period, and they don't necessarily have as much wherewithal to give to every community event. So when we were, kind of getting down the path on this one, and we had seen several of our large sponsors fall off on this one, you have to make a decision about an event. You can't just make the decision the night before, right? There's vendors that you have to contact. There's entertainment that you need to also. They need to have the ability to book somewhere else. So need to be fair to them, so they don't lose income. You need to make the decisions sooner than later, right? Another challenge that Bike Night was facing was a steady decline in volunteerism, and that I think is another thing that we're seeing from the heavy demand in volunteerism over the past couple of years as well. People are tired, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think we are tough on ourselves when it comes to volunteerism, right? I've noticed that we have a hard time saying no. We have a hard time saying, I can't do it. So people will overcommit, and then they burn. And we were starting to see that steady decline because people were they were tired. That is an event that is a more challenging event to volunteer for. It's a tough event. And I will say, there were growing public safety concerns, but one of the things that we as the Parks and Recreation Department, that we really, is part of our motto, is that we're family friendly, right? And I've been at a number of the bike nights, and part of it is just the setup in which it was, but you're funneling families with children into the middle of a road that's driving motorcycles down it as it's going to dusk and dark. That's risky. And it's not a fault of anybody, right? It's
just the reality
it's
of
just the
what it is.
reality of it, right? That's just a reality of it. And I think that tends to, families tend to not want to come for that type of reason. And we really want to get back to the family-orientated, family-friendly, where everybody feels comfortable with bringing their kids, and we're not concerned about, moving motor vehicles that are happening at the same time. So, but that, along with some, we had some other growing concerns that were happening, but really, I got a lot of I got feedback on social media pages. I will say we got one phone call at the town hall, and the rec department only got a handful of phone calls about the cancellation. It was largely the response on social media, which is fine. We look at those
But
as
easy.
well.
It's
Fine, but
easy
easy.
to,
I get it.
to jump on and.
But we saw that, why didn't they ask for volunteers? Why didn't they? We had 2 partner organizations that were working with us that worked with organizing volunteers. But we had some of our key volunteers that decided they weren't going to be able to come back. And when you have those key volunteers, you can't uptick somebody into that organizational component in a very short window of time, right?
Sure.
You just can't, and it becomes critical to the general public safety when you don't have that capability of bringing somebody into that. So, for a lot of reasons is why I made the decision, because I made the decision to cancel bike night, and I think it really allows recreation to bring an event back that is really more reflective of our roots in being family and community orientated event. And I think they're going to do that. I know they're going to do that. I've seen the event that they're pulling together, and I think it's going to be fantastic. So, and that's where I think we really needed to go. So, like every event, it has its season, and sometimes it's a hard thing to see an event stop and leave room for something new. New England, we're not good with change. The weather may change every other minute, but we are not good with change.
No, I've noticed that, yeah.
And that's what I think really what we're seeing is,
And particularly, to be fair, after 2 years that have demanded so much change,
yeah,
losing something that felt like a hallmark touchstone.
Yeah, and I
could
understand
be
that.
impactful. So, leading is often making difficult or unpopular decisions. Here's another one I want to talk to you about,
Okay.
not that you've made, but that I imagine you have to have a say
Okay.
in. Killingly has a blight ordinance.
Yes, we do have a blight ordinance.
And I've heard from folks as they drive around town. I notice it myself and wonder, why hasn't the blight ordinance kicked in?
Yeah.
What is our blight ordinance? How do people trigger it? Are there any teeth to it?
So there is there is teeth to our blight ordinance. So how do people trigger it? There's actually a form online that you can fill out. That's a complaint form that goes to our zoning enforcement officer. He is my designated blight official. So he oversees the blight ordinance, and so you fill that out, or you call the planning department and you talk to Jonathan and you say, this is the conditions. And he goes out and investigates and determines, is there a violation of the blight ordinance? Is there not, right? And so the blight, we really are looking at, is there actual trash, on somebody's property? Is there a public health hazard, right? Like, is there an attractive nuisance, or is it harboring pests of some kind, right? Those types of things. I have gotten calls from people that are insistent that their neighbor painted their house the wrong color, and they don't like it.
Yeah.
And they want the town to require them to repaint it, or they haven't. They've just recently fixed up their house, and their neighbor's house isn't as fixed up as theirs, and they want the town to go in and fix it up, right? Yeah. And that's not blight, right? No. And everybody has the right to live in their property, in how they deem fit within their property, as long as it's not a nuisance or a public health hazard, right? And so we do have the ability under the blight ordinance, if it qualifies under blight, for the town to, we always try and work with the property owners. And I will say Jonathan does a fantastic job working with property owners. He really has a great way of engaging with them and working towards solution, because that's ultimately what we want to do. We don't want to have to, pull out doing fines or having to go in and remediate and put liens on properties. We don't want to do those things. And Jonathan gets a lot of compliance from that. And some of it is just, the person sometimes has run into a financial difficulty and they don't have the wherewithal to do what it is that needs to be done. And they're very grateful for the help, right? Or it may be a landlord that didn't realize, they're not here, they didn't realize that the property was in that state. And they usually take pretty quick action. There are some properties that we haven't had those compliances with the property owners, and some of them are a little bit more challenging than others, but we do have the ability, once I review it with Jonathan, if I deem that the town goes in and we clean up the exterior. So we don't go in, right? We clean up we can clean up trash that would be causing those nuisance or public health hazards on the exterior of the property. And then we have the ability to lien the property for that.
This is a total left turn from that topic.
That's
Thank
fine.
you for that. How many people work for the town of Killingley?
We have full-time employees. We have about 85 part-time.
What are their names in alphabetical order? I'm just kidding. I feel like I'm just peppering you with the most ridiculous questions.
I could probably come close, but maybe not all of them. But and then our part-time and seasonal, we can balloon up to about 120 to 130 when we have like our summer camp running, sure, or when we have elections and we have all of our poll workers on. So we can balloon up to about 130.
Now, some of the newest hires in the grand scheme of things have been our constables.
Yes.
That's been a couple years now.
Yeah.
But talk to us some about public safety. And
sure.
Have the constables achieved the goal for which they were instated? If
sure.
there was one,
yeah.
What are the next steps with that?
Yeah, so I think that we're on a good path with our law enforcement division. And so we have currently right now five constables. I just call them police officers because they are certified police officers. They
okay.
Act as law enforcement. So, so their goal is to provide, the long-term goal when we started this program was to eventually get to a municipal police department. We are a long way from that, right? There's a lot that has to happen between now and then. But one of the things that was driving the conversation was the cost around our resident state trooper program. Killingley originally had 4 resident state troopers, and we were paying $1 million a year for 4 people. And just the economics of that. Nobody really knew who they were. There wasn't a lot of community engagement with them. And so we really wanted to move into a community policing where our law enforcement was specifically here in our community, and they engaged with the community, and they weren't just responding to calls, right? But that they would go to events, or they would be able to, interact with our schools and things like that. Those are things that our residency trooper programs weren't necessarily able to achieve. And so I think that, have they achieved the goals? No, because we're still in a significant growing phase, right? The first goal that we had set more than 6 years ago was to get to 10 constables with 1 resident state trooper, and that goal was to be a 5-year goal. We're at like year 7, right? And this year I'm hoping to be able to hire constables 7 and 8, right? So hopefully by the end of this fiscal year we will be at 8 constables and 2 resident state troopers. With that growth, though, I watch our law enforcement statistics all the time, and the amount of calls that our officers cover on a quarterly basis. We cover 1/3 of all of the calls in Killingley, which is a little over 1,000 calls in 3 months by a group of 5 to 6 guys, right? I mean, that's an incredible call volume. And And they handle all sorts of calls, right? I mean, it's not just, you know, when they have to go and do enforcement, but, you know, somebody that just needs a wellness check. You know, they've had, you know, some of my officers have developed rapport with some of the families, and the families were struggling with making sure their kids got to school, and so they were helping to make sure the child got to school, you know. And I remember one of them coming in celebrating because the child got on the bus, you know, and that was a big
win.
That was a big deal. That was a big win. But that's the community policing that we want to see. That's the community engagement. That's the connection. And so we're growing that, and we want to continue to grow that. And in order for us to, you know, we have what's our next steps. You know, we really need to move them into a more dedicated and larger administration space where they can function out of administratively. And I say administratively because, you know, all of their police reporting, processing, interviewing, all happens at Troop D. All of that piece happens there. But where they need to go and, type their reports, you know, get through their files, all of that kind of stuff, that's right now in an office space up in the town hall, small office space in the town hall. And as we continue to grow, they need space, and they're already out of space where they're at right now. So we really need to get administrative space, and I did get an approval to use some of our American Rescue Plan Act to try and identify a space that we could move them to. That'll be key in being able to get us to continue to grow the program. Ultimately, we want to be able to, you know, before we even look at becoming an official municipal police department outside of the state, we need to be able to continue to grow our patrols. And so we really, in the middle term, I would like to see us get to at least 15 to 20 officers. But right now, hiring law enforcement is a challenge. And it's a challenge across the country. It's an even more difficult challenge in the state of Connecticut, right? So they put a lot of new requirements on law enforcement, and they've in the state of Connecticut, and they've made it more challenging for officers to do their jobs with the police accountability bill. And so more law enforcement that you would potentially get as a lateral transfer from somewhere else, or deciding that maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And we have far fewer that are going into the industry. So hiring law enforcement, you know, it's not an easy thing. You know, they don't have, you know, they used to get large groups that would go down and take the test and go into the academy, and they would see easily, you know, 20 to 30 applicants at any given point in time. Now we're lucky if we see, you know, 5. Which, when you're trying to divide that across all of this area, every law enforcement division is down people. So it's challenging. It's very competitive in trying to be able to offer competitive packages in order to be able to recruit. And for us, you know, I've been very specific in our hiring, in that I'm looking for more lateral and veteran, ones that have been in law enforcement for a period of time. As we grow, we're starting to get to the phase that we will likely be able to look at putting a new person through the academy. But when you put a new person through the academy, there is a lot of additional training on the back end of that academy. So it's almost 2 years before that person really becomes a productive member of your crew, which is a great investment, provided you get them to stay. Right? And provided you have the staff that can do all of that training. And so that's really been part of the focus, is making sure we bring on the talented folks that have the ability to do those trainings as we expand the program.
So we've got some folks here with us who've been writing out some questions. I'm going to get Iris to bring me up those questions now. But while I'm looking through these, how would you sum up the people of Killingly? Like, what?
Passionate, loyal, and dedicated. And honestly, I really feel that they are truly a loving group. They love their community, and they are passionate about and dedicated to their community. And I love that. I love seeing that. it's great to be around a community that's people that are so invested in their community.
So we've got some good stuff here. We're not going to be able to do all of them because I'm mindful of our time and what we've already asked for you. But I do have a few that I do want to lift up here. How far along is the renovation at the Westfield Avenue Central Office for recreation and its future uses? This is a big news item.
It is.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So we are actually, Wednesday night, we will be interviewing, the Permanent Building Commission will be interviewing a potential general contractor for that job. So we are still in we haven't even really broken into design phase yet on that one. So we're still in the infancy phase of that project. So no renovations have taken place as of yet because we still have to get through design. And then we'll get into construction, which actually times really well with the KMS project. Because the KMS project, as we've had to identify swing space in order for them to do the occupied renovation there, now we are activating the area of Westfield Avenue that would be used as the community center. We're activating that for the 4th grade for at least the next year and a half. So that will time with the construction cycle for the renovations to happen at Westfield Avenue. But yeah, so we'll be in design phase for Westfield Avenue for probably 10 months to a year.
So you got a lot of balls in the air.
We do.
At once. How do you streamline and prioritize those things? How do you make sure all of it's getting the attention it deserves? I'm sure part of that's staff.
Yeah, a lot of that is staff, clearly. A lot of that is staff. But sometimes you have to come in and determine, which ones are bonfires and which ones you can wait a day on. And some of it, for me, a lot of it is chipping away, not waiting until something turns into a bonfire, but, chipping away at the components that we need to get done so that way we can keep moving things forward, even incrementally, even when there may not be a lot to get done, but if we can incrementally do a little bit here and there, it will move it forward, So, yeah, but staff, I have an amazing staff. They are a phenomenal team, and I am always impressed with how well they collaborate together on all things. I have regular staff meetings with all my department heads, and it's amazing to watch how many that are in offices that you would think aren't impacted by, say, something that recreation is doing, and yet they're like, oh, wait a minute, what about this? And it's a large collaboration effort, and I feel it's because nobody feels threatened. Everybody feels that they are part of the team, and that team is what really pulls everything together, so I'm fortunate.
With everything you've got going on,
yeah.
How do people in our town keep up with it? What are the best ways for them to know what's going on?
Yeah, so we keep updated our Facebook page and our website. Any new informational flyers and stuff like that all goes on our website. We've newly created we have our regular calendar on our website, which shows all of the boards and commission meetings. And I highly recommend everybody go check that out, because that really tells you if you can, even watch some of the boards and commissions on Facebook. Some of them are live streamed, but even if you are able to attend one every now and again, I think that really helps you get a better understanding of what's happening around in the community. But we also have a calendar for community events as well. So we try and put up all the events that our recreation department's doing, as well as our library, and also what other events our communities members are doing as well.
What about non-digital methods of communication? Are there any?
So we have not been producing like a newsletter in quite some time, but we
Parks
usually
and Rec has one.
Yeah, they have their flyer. We do put up flyers usually at our library, so we're for events and things like that. Any public votes or capital projects that we're looking at, we put them all up, usually in our respective facilities, Many people may remember I had big poster boards up for a long time on the KMS project and on the Westfield Avenue project. They were up in the different facilities. Our budget book, we always make sure that as we're going through the budget process, that budget, the physical book is available at the town hall and the library. So if anybody has questions or wants to look at it, they don't have to try and print it off online, or say they don't have access online, they can come and get a book.
Okay. And we've noticed that the library sign has been a great addition.
It is.
Of quick information for people driving by
Yep.
to see what's happening in the
Claudette gives me
future.
my limits on it. She tells
I'm
me exactly
sure.
how many words I can put on, right?
Yes.
But no, that is a great addition. And you know, in the when we were doing the budget this past year, there was a question about adding one potentially at Owen Bell. We've been doing some research on that, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to add it, but that's those are opportunities. So we try and utilize all of our opportunities. I go on Winnie Radio once a month as part of their talk show, and I'm always open for phone calls, so people can call in and ask whatever question they may have. They can always just call my office or stop in. If I'm there, I usually try and answer the question, and if I'm not, they'll schedule a time or schedule a phone call, and I can reach out to the person. So I'm always available.
So as we're wrapping up here, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about what you do, what you see coming, any of those things?
I think you covered a lot of it.
We went
It's
through
hard. That's a lot.
A bunch. Yes.
But I think first of all, I'm thankful to be part of this. I'm thankful that you asked me to participate in this. But I think that I see a lot of really great things for Killingly. I see a lot of growth and mindful and purposeful growth in the community. And I really want people to focus on the roots of coming together and pulling together, and that kindful spirit that we have for each other.
Thank you. So with that, we will wrap up our time together. Our next one is August 22nd at 7 o'clock here at Westfield. You can be here in person or join us online. We'll have Missy Myers there. Also, if you're hankering for some barbecue, no bikes, no problem. We're still hosting our barbecue night on the night that was going to be bike night.
Oh, good for you.
August 18th. You can order your tickets online, westfielducc.org/eat, or you can show up in person and jump in. It's going to be delicious. Our world famous, Killingly famous dessert room will be back with some of the best bakers in Killingly, providing desserts that you get to pick your favorite of to have with your meal. So that is all tonight from Westfield. Thanks for taking the time to join us, and thank you to Mary for your time particularly. It's good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
All right.